Konnichiwa, City Slickers. Today we're talking about the land of the rising sun, the nation of sumo and sushi, and the head of your IT department's favorite country, Japan. Now, if you spend any time around a high school marching band practice room, you'd know some Americans have an unhealthy obsession with Japan. We in the West love to glamorize the country, whether it's their lightning-fast bullet trains, delicious cuisine, or engaging animes. Japan is often looked upon very fondly by North Americans, and many, including myself, dream of visiting someday. However, Japan is not without its problems, and a huge one right now is population decline. See, Japan has a rapidly aging population as a result of low fertility rates and the second longest life expectancy in the world. This has led to an interesting issue where homes and buildings in rural areas of Japan are being abandoned as residents grow too old to care for them or do not have anyone to pass them on to. And as economic conditions worsen in Western nations, particularly in terms of housing security, many people are looking towards the island nation for a new start. Let's start with a quick history lesson. After the end of World War II, Japan experienced a massive boom in economic growth and faced drastic social changes. The previously imperialist and nationalist government, after defeat in the Pacific Theater, turned to demilitarization and democratization under US occupation from 1948 to 1952. After Japan regained independence in 1952, its economy rapidly transformed, with growth rates averaging 10 to 13% annually. This boom impacted every part of Japanese life. The countryside saw improvements such as more durable crop strains and mechanicalization, while rapid urbanization drew people from rural areas to Japan's burgeoning cities. Japan's population grew swiftly thereafter, but after hitting its peak in 2008 at 128 million people, Japan's population has been on a rapid decline, registering 125 million people in 2022. Projections show that at this current rate, Japan's population will decrease to a measly 63 million people by 2100. Why is this happening? Well, because of the many reasons that made its population boom in the first place. Rapid urbanization and modernization correlate with declining birth rates, as children are more of a necessity in rural areas, and many urban lifestyles and high economic costs are inhibiting having children at the replacement rate of 2.1 births per woman. Japan also has a massive social issue with loneliness, particularly in young men, which is exacerbating this depopulation issue. And with the second longest life expectancy in the world, Japan's population is turning older and older by the day, with fewer young people to take care of and replace the elderly. So as it stands, Japan is in a full-on population crisis, and this is being reflected in the nation's urban fabric. The Population Strategy Council predicts that of the 1,729 local municipalities in Japan, 744 are likely to vanish by 2050. With a rapidly urbanizing and aging population, these countryside communities are essentially bleeding out. Enter the Akiya home. Akiya is a Japanese term that essentially refers to an empty house. It is estimated that there are nearly 9 million of these homes littered throughout the country. Japan's population decline is becoming so rapid that what was previously a phenomenon found in the rural areas of Japan is now being seen in cities like Kyoto and Tokyo. According to figures compiled by the Ministry of International Affairs and Communications, 14% of all residential properties in Japan are vacant. Akiya are often passed down through generations, but with Japan's plummeting fertility rate, many are left with no heir to pass to or are inherited by younger generations who have moved to the cities and see little value in returning to rural areas, experts told CNN. So what is the country doing with all of these homes? Well, many are stuck in administrative limbo due to the bookkeeping being so old or the homes being abandoned for so long that it's tough to keep track of who even owns them in the first place. However, for those that do retain the ownership to their property, a new trend is arising. Selling to Westerners. With housing prices out of reach for the average citizen in countries like the USA, Canada, and Australia, many lifelong residents of the anglo-sphere are looking to other countries to make a new home. This trend has become especially pronounced since the rise of remote work, where you don't need to physically be located in the country you're working in. Also, anglo-sphere countries can take advantage of their strong currency's buying power, essentially performing a cost of living international arbitrage. As a result of these trends, several online services have popped up, advertising the dream of buying an Akiya home in the beautiful Japanese countryside for dirt cheap and fixing it up to live a life of relaxation and exuberance. So who's buying up these homes? Surely it isn't just your local Naruto running weeaboo friend from high school finally living out his dream life. Well, let's look at the internet to find out.
I bought this house in Japan for $6,000 and I just got the keys today. So a few years ago, we decided that we would like to buy a house in Japan. It was a dream of ours that we'd had for many years after spending a lot of time in Japan on holidays and living here.
Excuse me, do you live around here?
No, actually, I just bought a property here though.
That's awesome. Can we go take a look at it?
Absolutely, follow me. Paid for a full renovation and it's much better now. I'm planning on using it as a rental property.
So it seems like there are some folks buying Akiya homes to live in permanently, as well as many looking for a second home or future retirement property. Primarily, the buyers are coming from English-speaking Western countries in North America and Oceania like the US, UK, Australia, New Zealand, and Canada. But also, there's a lot of people buying these as investment or rental properties, some renting long-term and some renting short-term as travel destinations through sites like Airbnb and VRBO. I bet you're sitting there on the edge of your DX racer, rubbing your hands together like Birdman, just waiting to put in an offer on one of these Akiya homes. And you're probably wondering how much one costs. Well, to find out, we can go to sites like All Akiyas, where we can find homes usually within the price range of $15,000 to $50,000 USD. This lovely little home comes in at an absolute steal of only $3,405 USD, but it looks like you might have to spend a lot of time cleaning up after the previous owner. On the higher end, we have this beautiful hillside home for just under $50,000 located in the Okayama prefecture of Honshu. It's got great bones and plenty of space, but definitely looks like it will need some work. And speaking of work, let's talk about what it's actually like to purchase one of these Akiya homes. The important thing to remember about these abandoned homes is that they are just that. Abandoned. They're in very derelict condition and pretty much none of them come in livable condition. If you aren't already someone who has experience in home building, renovating, or construction, this will be a daunting, potentially impossible task. And even if you are, it will still be a massive undertaking. In my research for this video, I stumbled across a channel called Chani Japan, which I'll link in the description. Chani is an Australian woman documenting her Akiya renovation process from start to finish, and here are some of the problems that she ran into.
2 days after I got the keys to the property, I asked the city council to come and turn the water on. That's where the first problem started. They turned the water on and guess what? Somewhere it was leaking. My second big problem was the septic system. So because the septic system hadn't been used for quite a while, it seemed like there were some issues with number one, the pump wasn't working, and number two, part of the system that does the cleansing had broken off, the plastic had worn down. Finally, the third big problem was termites. Yes, you heard it, termites. The builders seemed to think it was because it was a wet area, so termites are quite common in wet areas. So once again, they replaced all the beams and the timber that was missing.
As you can see, renovating a house like this is a full-time job. You will likely not have time to work while you are taking on a project like this, so you better have some money saved up to cover your living costs on top of the renovation costs. Additionally, there's so many unforeseen things that can go wrong. The house can have problems that weren't described or known about, like plumbing leaks, rotting wood, or even structural and foundational issues. I think a lot of people can jump into projects like these because of the sale price being so low and the dream being so big. But the reality is that you're going to end up paying far more than you expect when it comes to actually making the home livable. Obviously, the best option is to tour the home before purchasing it, but a trip to Japan is very expensive and would cut into overall costs as well. And let's say you do purchase an Akiya and it needs significant repair. That leaves another massive problem: the language and culture barrier. If you're moving from another country, especially an English-speaking one, and you don't speak Japanese, navigating around that might be even harder work than the renovation itself. Imagine trying to hire contractors, engineers, or even just order building materials in a foreign language that has no resemblance to English. Also, imagine trying to get things like building permits or business licenses from local Japanese governments. You better get started on that Duolingo. There's also a lot of difficulty with financing Akiyas because the homes are perceived by Japanese banks to have very little to no value. Plus, the average property tax in Japan is 1.4%, which is no drop in the bucket. However, many local municipalities will give you financial incentives to purchase the homes because they are seen as bothersome in their current state. Additionally, renting in these areas of the country seldom produces profits relative to the cost of maintenance and repair, even as a short-term business. I'd say if you don't plan on living in or near an Akiya for at least part of the year, it might not be a good idea to purchase one. All that being said, there's plenty of positives to buying an Akiya home. First off, you get to live in Japan, which is objectively a super cool place. Secondly, if you can get everything done at a reasonable price and the home isn't too far gone, an Akiya home can still cost a fraction of what the same size home would cost you in North America. Plus, you get the bonus of being a part of the preservation of Japan's beautiful architectural history and culture. And there's no better way to be fully immersed in a foreign society than dealing with its local building permits. Okay, so now that we've gone through the pros and cons, let's talk about what matters the most. The people in these communities where the Akiya homes exist. How do they feel about this trend? Japan is a country that's sometimes known for not being particularly welcome to foreigners, and I would imagine that that sentiment is larger in less metropolitan areas where most Akiya homes are for sale. However, this obviously varies greatly from person to person, and dislike of foreigners is a problem you'll come across eventually in any nation. What you are doing, however, with a successful Akiya is investing in rural communities that are currently struggling due to population issues and rapid urbanization. You're also improving and beautifying a decaying structure, which I believe most folks would appreciate. And if you do plan to host guests or rent, that does bring more attraction to these areas too, which can help drive tourist economies. But don't get carried away. Like with any country, if you're going to move there or spend any significant amount of time there, you gotta respect the locals and respect their culture. Don't buy an Akiya home and make rural Japan into this. So all in all, is the Akiya trend beneficial not only for Japan but for those who are buying into it? Well, it depends. If you're someone with a bit of cash and you're ready to spend months to years working on the construction project of your dreams, and you're ready to learn one of the hardest languages in the world, and you're willing to deal with all of the issues that come with restoring an old abandoned home, then go for it. But if you're salivating looking at $15,000 home listings, either because you're a property-pilled investment guru or because you've spent 1,000 plus hours watching One Piece filler episodes, don't touch an Akiya with a 10-foot kendo stick. Japanese culture does not put as much emphasis into housing valuation as we do in North America, and many Japanese see these older homes as essentially worthless. The home will depreciate, and as more Japanese boomers inch closer to their expiry date, more homes will flood the market and lower the value of yours. An Akiya renovation is not a property investment, it's a quality of life investment. And as for Japan, I'm usually not a proponent for buying up cheap properties for the sake of them being cheap, as that can lead to gentrification or pushing out locals. But it seems like in this case, we darned Westerners are actually helping out the local economies a bit, and many Japanese folks seem pretty gracious for the investment. However, as with moving to any place that you didn't come from, it's important to respect the local culture and traditions. Understand that you're still a foreigner in a rural area of a homogenous country that is sometimes not the most fond of outsiders. Who knows though? With the government needing to bolster the population with immigration, we might just see the Japanese countryside towns turning into emigration havens, and soon the streets will be lined with Soul Cycles, fresh pressed juiceries, and third wave coffee shops.
No! God, please, no! No! No!
When it comes to housing trends like these, only time will tell if they're beneficial in the long run. Japan isn't the only country where this is becoming popular, as we've seen municipalities in Italy offer homes for €1 to attract city dwellers into the countryside. It's an interesting strategy that has plenty of benefits, like increased economic development and job creation, but also some negatives like abandoned projects and the potential for gentrification. But I'm no clairvoyant, and I'm certainly no expert on Japan. I mean, I've never even been there. But I'm just saying that before you go all PewDiePie and quit your job to live your dream life under the cherry blossoms, consider what you might be getting yourself into. But what do you think? Does an Akiya home sound like a dream come true? Do you think it's more trouble than it's worth? Should we put an 8-lane highway and a Walmart in this beautiful Japanese mountainside village? Let me know in the comments below, and let me know what you want to see from me next. Till next time, City Slickers.